My name is Coach Lapka. I coach at the high school for football, and I am an 8th grade U.S. history teacher.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
So you have been in attendance, I think, at all of our classroom things. I don't know that you've been able to make it to all the lab pieces. Those are different schedules, and I get it. How about the sport side? That's where we're focusing, right? We're people development side in sport. Any of that transfer over to the academic side, the teaching side?
Right. Yeah, a lot of it has. One of the big ones is explaining why to the students. That's been a big help over the last year. You know, it gets a lot more buy-in. They're more interested in it, and they feel like they have more of an understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So it explains to them in more detail.
So history. So why matters in the history?
Right. So one of the things that we touch on is George Washington's time in office. You know, so we're talking a lot about some of the first precedents that he set. So one of the things we actually did is we watched a new documentary known as Washington, and we actually explained to the kids, hey, you know, I know it's hard for you guys to understand what life was like back then because they didn't have phones, you know. That's the biggest one.
Sure.
You know, and then the other big one is when they fired at each other, they didn't have like pistols, they didn't have machine guns, they had one shot, you know. So letting them see that in the docuseries and explaining to them, hey, this is why we're doing it, that explains it to them a little bit more and they understand why they're watching it instead of they're sitting there going, oh, we got to watch a docudrama. This is going to be so fun.
So connect that back to sport. How did I, or why did we, however you want to phrase it, why did we talk about why? Why did that matter?
Right. Big way is with the drills, you know, explaining what is the purpose of each drill, explain what you're trying to get out of it. You know, that way, once again, you get that buy-in, you get that explanation, the kids are more comfortable with it. You know, they're focused on, oh, okay, this is what he said to look for, and they can feel whether they're doing it right or whether they're doing it wrong and how that transitions, you know, later on into like practice, like during a game, all that good stuff.
Sure, so a very simple thing that we've talked about is every drill you do for any sport has to have a what. The kids need to know what the heck they're trying to do.
Right.
There needs to be a why are we doing this? And then there needs to be a connection to competition. Right. Because that piece, that in an academic setting, that's the busy work. Right. If we don't tell kids why this matters for competition, if they can't connect those dots, we as coaches aren't going to get great effort out of them.
Correct.
But as soon as we can connect those dots for them, oh, now the effort goes up.
Yep.
Now their results go up.
Yep.
Now it's a lot easier to show up to practice. It's a lot easier to show up and put in the effort.
Right, right, and it's been huge. You know, it's a big difference that you see in the classroom. You know, when they see the reason as to why we're doing it and then explain to them, like, they're more into it. You know, I've talked to them a couple times about like, hey, if I didn't tell you why I was doing this, would you be as interested in doing it? And they just straight up are like, no. You know, which is very true. You know, it's surprising that they actually give you that answer.
So to that end, though, let's pull that string for a second. Mm-hmm. U.S. history.
Right.
I assume you like U.S. history.
Just a little bit.
Great. I assume you like football.
Yes.
Great. You probably like both of those
more
than most of your students and more of your players, yes?
Oh, yeah.
So we have to be able to not quite temper, but show our enthusiasm, show our passion in a little different way in order to help motivate, in order to help teach.
Right.
Would you say that's true?
100%. 100%. You know, because they're young. They're still figuring out what they enjoy in life. You know, there's some kids that love history and there's some that have no interest at all. You know, I mean, so by showing my interest in it and explaining to them the why of it, you know, they get that more of that buy-in, which is huge for the classroom and in sports.
Anything else that comes from this connection here, from sport to the classroom?
Yeah, another thing that you mentioned was mistakes. Like, how do you deal with mistakes, you know? And we live in a culture right now where if you make a mistake, it's a terrible thing, and it should be something that you're embarrassed about, you know, and that's no different on the football field, that's no different in the classroom, you know, so trying to get kids to understand, like, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. That's you learning, that's you getting better, you know. So one of the things I like to do is I myself like to make mistakes in front of them, you know, so that they can see how I deal with it. Do I freak out? Am I calm? Do I just fix it and move on? You know, that's something that has helped them because at the beginning of the year, they don't ever want to answer your questions because they're terrified to be wrong, you know. But when they see me up there and I make a mistake and it's over and done with and we move on, then they're more comfortable. So.
And it comes down so simply to show that as we're going to say the wrong word.
Right.
We're going to talk too much with our hands.
Right.
We're going to do those things that we can use as a tool.
Right.
To show the kids it's okay.
Yes.
Good on you, George. Thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.